feel bad for you.
I don't think about you at all.
So like most millennials, I think about investing and worry about money like all the time. Earlier this year, I was listening to a podcast about personal finance and came across a highly rated episode featuring a guest named Adrian Grenier. While I read the description, I thought to myself, whoa, Adrian Grenier? What are the odds that there's a guy out there who teaches investing with the same name as the star of Entourage? But as the host made his introductions, I learned that he was joined by the star of Queens Boulevard, James Cameron's Aquaman, the one and only Vincent Chase. It turns out that since the end of Entourage, Adrian has done a lot of shit. He moved to Austin, he started a beer company, he bought a farm that he lives off of, and most notably, he became an impact investor. In 2019, Grenier co-founded a company called Do Contra Ventures to specialize in this field. The company focuses on making investments in businesses that focus on human flourishing, sustainable consumption, and the future of communities. During the interview, Grenier mentions that although he has partnered with several nonprofits in the past, he really believes that money is truly the only way to make a difference in causes that are important to him. He believes that if he truly wants to help others, impact investing provides him the best opportunity to do so. Do Contra seeks to identify founders and company execs with great values and help them achieve better outcomes for ideally everyone. Sounds like our boy from Queens has grown up a lot since his Medellin days.
I'm not cutting, Turtle. Way to be a man of the people, Aquaman.
Also, quick aside, one of my friends had a seizure while he was on a set with Adrian Grenier, and he said when he came to, he found himself being consoled by Adrian. Said he helped him out, checked on him multiple times throughout the shoot, so, oh yeah, way to go, Aquaman. I knew what Seth Green said about you wasn't true.
Yo, E! Hey, did you tell Sloan I said what up?
So anyway, as the podcast goes on, Adrian talks a little bit about his organization and the kinds of entrepreneurs and businesses that he works with. He mentions his vision of realigning wealth to help the world, but over and over again, he keeps name-dropping this book that he read that he says reshaped his view of money and the world. And that book, my friends, is Sacred Economics, Money, Gift, and Society in the Age of Transition by Charles Eisenstien. So after the third or fourth time you mentioned it, I thought, alright, fine, Vin. After the hours of entertainment that you, E, Turtle, Ari, and especially Drama gave me, I can read a book for you, even if it doesn't sound like something that's going to get me rich. So I read it, and today I'm going to share some thoughts with you so that in case you meet Vincent Chase, you can have something to talk about besides The Devil Wears Prada. Alright, to begin, this book is all about changing the way we view, use, and create money to better serve humanity's interests. It's a hefty analysis of what seem like some fairly simple concepts rooted in our own history as a species. I'd say the central theme of Sacred Economics revolves around the concept of transforming our economic system from one based on scarcity and competition to one rooted in abundance and cooperation. Eisenstein argues, using plenty of examples, that our current economic structure has mutated to a place that is fundamentally illogical based on our ecological reality. As the word sacred in the title might suggest, it does get a little too woo-woo at times, at least for my taste, but it's so well thought out and researched, I can't argue that. This book thinks we have a serious problem at hand with present-day capitalism and looks to offer some remedies. Naturally, when you're talking about overhauling the status quo, you're going to sound a tad radical, but while everything he's introducing is pretty extreme on the surface, it is very finely conveyed. Put simply, Sacred Economics says money's current role in our world is pretty fucking disgusting, but it doesn't have to be.
You know, it's the largest mammal on Earth, but as George says, they don't have to be.
For starters, the book talks a lot about the nature of money itself. Why do people say money is the root of all evil? Shouldn't it just be a store of value? Does money truly serve us, or has it become a source of separation and inequality? This is talked about a lot. Eisenstein mentions the origin of interest and henceforth usury, which has equated to endless growth at the cost of our lives, and with debt being wielded for pretty unsavory practices. I mean, institutions can essentially own people, communities, and even countries through the manifestation of debt and credit, and it certainly leads us to the departure of what money was intended for originally. Luckily, the book doesn't just critique our existing system, it offers a roadmap for transitioning to a new economic paradigm. Eisenstein explores alternative currencies, local economies, the importance of valuing wealth outside of financial wealth, and prioritizing the well-being of our communities and the planet.
A real community is a gift economy, where you can help your neighbor or help somebody in the community, give something to them, and they don't pay you. but they feel gratitude towards you. So they want to do something for you too. They want to take care of you too. Or even if they have nothing to give to you, somebody else in the community sees that you're being generous. And so the community takes care of you. And if you're not generous, if you're really selfish, then no one wants to take care of you either. So in a gift culture, the more you give, the richer you are, which is kind of the opposite of a money culture.
On a macro level, he talks about reducing globalization, investing in what he calls the gift economy, and one of the more interesting concepts explored is negative interest. So quite literally, charging people for storing their money and not using it. It's a pretty fascinating approach for trying to incentivize labor, lending, and economic transactions over hoarding money. You might think that's insane, that would never work, but Japan actually practices negative interest rates as we speak. Needless to say, Eisenstien thinks we are heading for a full economic collapse at the rate we're going, so something's gotta give. He's most worried about how we prioritize making money over the environment and helping people.
Derek, what people?
I don't know. People who need help.
You might be thinking, well, yeah, we got problems, but these systems that breed inequality and deforestation and poverty have been firmly rooted in place for hundreds, if not thousands of years. What am I going to be able to do about it? Well, you'll be glad to know that Eisenstien does give a handful of suggestions for everyone to consider trying. For example, one thing he calls out, which I am definitely guilty of, is participating in the disposability of things. At some point, it became cheaper to buy something new rather than to fix your own possessions. If my toaster breaks, or my shirt tears, or if I snap off the end of my screwdriver, I'm not going to get it repaired. I'll probably just throw it away. We make garbage, we buy garbage, and then we treat it like garbage. Compare that to something you have that's old but has sentimental value to you, like an old baseball mitt or a piece of antique jewelry. You treat it with care, and you would get it fixed if something happened. We can also leverage our communities to curb wasteful habits. He talks about how illogical it is that on any given block of, say, 12 houses, there are 12 different lawnmowers sitting in 12 separate garages. Each one gets used for what, an hour each week? The whole street could easily share one and nobody's life would change at all. There are also the more commonly discussed practices that breed societal value, like shopping at farmers markets, recycling, or keeping your money in credit unions instead of banks. Throughout sacred economics, there's this idea that keeps surfacing up, where if we make money mean less, we can make people mean more. In the future Eisenstien describes, you would rather someone owe you a favor than owe you money. Let's go back to this idea of negative interest rates. If money would shrink while it was sitting untouched in a bank, the rich would be de-incentivized to hoard wealth and would rather share it with those who need it. A business or project that could only break even or even would lose a little money would become a great investment. So now all of a sudden things like reforestation efforts would become more feasible. So if I had to summarize my biggest takeaways from the book, they would be as follows. 1. Eisenstien believes in the abundance of our world and the myth of scarcity. That while half the world goes hungry, the other half wastes more than enough food to feed everyone. That sort of thing. 2. Replacing the gold standard with backing our money by the right to harvest and pollute natural resources incentivizes people and, more importantly, businesses to protect our planet. 3. The only real wealth is deep social relationships with others. You can accumulate money, but if tomorrow the economy crashes, it's worthless. You can stockpile food and gold, but if the government collapses, people who don't like you can just steal it. The only thing that can't be taken is your connections and relationships with others. 4, Eisenstien isn't convinced the world is getting better with capitalism. He sees today's innovation as simply paying for things that used to be free. Things our ancestors would have never dreamed paying for. His examples include bottled water, childcare, and access to land. And 5, this dude absolutely believes every word he's saying. He isn't out here trying to get conventionally rich. You can download his book for free if you want. It isn't even copyrighted. It's all about sharing his message. When he speaks at conferences, he lets people pay him what they think he's worth. He shares some personal stories about his relationship with ownership in the book that are pretty interesting. And I have to say, it's nice that he remains so optimistic about the future constantly. This is definitely not a book where he says, the government should do this and do it right now. Eisenstien says, as a collective whole, humans are going to all choose this future he's talking about. Look, I don't agree with everything in there, but he's got some good points. And I always love reading and learning views that might contradict my own. One item that kept coming to mind for me is, obviously a system is very dependent on everybody taking care of one another, but what I think he might be overlooking is, well, annoying people. Some people are really annoying. If our entire avenue for pure self-reliance and independence is largely disrupted, then yeah, there are gonna be some really annoying or disliked people who end up with nothing. And I say annoying here as opposed to evil or dishonest because someone who gets on everybody's nerves isn't necessarily doing anything wrong or intentional, so they don't really deserve to lose the fundamental systems of support that a morally bankrupt person might. But at the end of the day, I was doing this for you, Vince, and it did make me re-examine my relationship with money. I like talking about the book too. It's a great conversation piece at cocktail parties. And who knows, maybe we will see some of these changes take place in our lifetimes. So what do you think? If you've read Sacred Economics, what stuck with you? If you haven't, did anything I said make you want to check it out? And my apologies if you thought this was going to be a huge review of Entourage or some character study on Ari Gold, but if that's something you'd like to see, I am willing to make a video about Season 8 or what I'd like to see in a reunion. Just let me know in the comments. And hey, thanks for watching.